Okay, so how did you get involved in this project? At what point did you learn about it, and what drew you to it?
I've worked with Kyle Higgins a few times in the past. Most recently, was a book called Deep Cuts, which was a jazz-driven kind of historical series. It was nominated for an Eisner, and my work on that, I guess, they were looking for an artist on Singularity to kind of tie the book together. I do all the in-between segments of the main character's journey through life, and I guess they're having trouble finding someone to do that. And after I'd submitted my issue for Deep Cuts, he was like, "This is dope. I have an idea. Can I run it by you?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, all right, bring it on." And so he set up a meeting between Bear, myself, and himself, and we talked about the album. And I love the mashup of genres where you're bringing two different disparate things together and how they would work, especially in comics, which is like a silent medium for the most part. So how do you represent music? How do you represent sound or audio without, cheesy, little music notes or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's funny enough, I've done a lot of these. So I did Deep Cuts. I did another one called Tale of Sand, which was a Jim Henson-based book, but very musically driven. So yeah, I had the meeting with Bear and Kyle, and Bear was kind enough to share the album with me. I sat back and listened to it. It's a dope album. If you haven't, check it out. And yeah, I was hooked. I was like, yeah, sign me on. And yeah, we just started chatting. They gave me the script. We discussed the main character. They were having trouble figuring out what he looked like. And the actor that he had used for his voice, I'm terrible with names, the guy from the Foundation series on Apple. Lee Pace, yes. One of the handsomest men in hold on, slow down. So I was like, why don't we just draw Lee Pace? They were like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I did a couple of sketches in. They sent it. I sent it in. They loved it. They were like, "This is awesome." All right, okay, easy. And, so yeah, and that's how I came on board. You kind of go where the universe takes you sometimes, right?
Yeah, you gotta say yes.
Yeah, I'm a yes and kind of guy. So yeah.
We talk a lot about challenges in the creative field, but I want to know for you on this, what was something that you were surprised in sort of how easily and smoothly it all came together?
Well, usually I know with a lot of artists, a lot of the harder part is the laying out of the comic and how the panels work with each other. And that I found it's one of my favorite things. So when I was listening to the album, having the script in hand and kind of imagining the sequencing of the pages, aside from the required first two panels having to be what they kind of set them up as, I was allowed to play in that regard. And that was like a nice, beautiful, easy moment where I'm just listening to the music and I'm using the panels almost like notes on a music page, or I'm not a musician, so I don't know the proper terms, but and just playing with that was just beautifully easy because the album is it takes you through a narrative, and just being able to just listen, you're like, oh yeah, this is going like this. So the panels are kind of emulating that in the story and the vibe of the story. Is it serene? Is it a long panel? Is it tall, thin, or whatever it is? So that was a real fun part and came quite nicely. When inspiration strikes, it gets right nice and easy, right? Yeah. It's the ones when you get the bad script and you're like, oh my god, I can't make this work. How is it going to go? So yeah.
So you talked a bit about how the characters look and how that came together at the start, but did that change much from beginning to end? And then I'm also curious about the general setting. How did you determine in collaboration what the background would look like, the world would look like?
I was one of the last artists that came in because, like I said, they were having a hard time finding someone to bind the series together. Because I can't remember right now, but I think there's 4 or 5 other artists on the series. They do different eras that correspond to different musical overtures on the album. And so a lot of the main work was done for me by the time I got there. I did the designing of the main character, like his look through the ages, and a lot of the artists then kind of adjusted their art to kind of match my rendition of the character kind of thing. And the backgrounds, all that stuff, the writer gave a nice robust script. You know, they oftentimes they'll give comparisons. They'll be like, it's kind of like this scene in a movie, or this book over here, or whatever. Or I want this vibe, or whatever it might be. So that was fairly easy. It's like, I think for the first 2 parts of my story, it's set like in a village. So I'm like researching things like villages and offshore places, peaceful places. And then after that, the world gets destroyed. So I just have fun after that. I'm drawing explosions, people melting, falling apart. Anatomy I never thought I'd draw. Like, it's wonderful. So like, yeah, a good script will take you good places, and like I said earlier, a bad script will be a hard thing to kind of adapt. So I guess the writer working closely with Bear on what he wanted. By the time they got into my hands, I pretty much hit the ground running. Aside from just designing the character, it was like smooth sailing. Excuse me, but yeah.
So then what was your favorite thing that you drew? Like, what did you get that inspiration and you just went?
Well, I think for me, except for one thing in particular, I love playing with comics as a medium because it's often relegated to the very simple. Like, it's like here's your Captain America comic, here's your whatever comic. It's 6 panels on a page, turn next, story goes on, which is awesome. I grew up on that. But there's so much more you can do with the medium, and how you play with those panels, how you play with the spaces in between the panels, how the characters are placed within them, and that emotional resonance you create through the arrangement of those things. And that's my favorite part to play. Favorite panel in the series, I got to draw a guy getting ripped apart by like mystical snake serpents, and so I'm drawing bones, arteries, hearts, things melting. I'm like, this is interesting. Like, it's always funny with right now that we have there's a big surge in AI art. You're like, oh my god, and I'm like typing in, try it out. You're typing in brain melting across the universe. What's it gonna get me? I'm like, I'm on my own here. Like, I gotta create it. So it's always funny when you get that script and what the writer has imagined and what they've asked you to create, and then you're like, all right, let's see how far I can push this and how much fun I can have. So yeah, no, it was a joy to draw and play with. I hope there's more of these kind of projects where you bring 2 kind of disparate industries together. Take a concept album, use film with comic books, whatever it might be. So there's so much fun you can have. Right? So, yeah, I think so. I think it's one of the. I always call it the redheaded stepchild of the art form. No one wants to talk about it. It's over there, but you go over to Europe, it's a celebrated medium. Here, it's still kind of trying to find its identity, it's trying to find its audience, and it's nice to see more and more people accepting it as an avenue of like a literary experience, basically, and the journeys it can take you on, right? So, yeah, it's pretty dope.
Do you find it more challenging to approach a project like this, where it's new and everything is pretty much up to you and the writer's discretion, versus doing something like with Marvel, where it's Captain America is Captain America, and this is what the world looks like? And
for sure, yeah. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that was. There was some stuff that was pre-designed already, but when you are given a world that's like a blank slate, it is more difficult, but it's also way more fun because you do have that free reign, right? It's a little bit difficult when they give you no parameters and you're like, where do you start? But if they give you like a few tent poles and go like, all right, between these two, this is what we're thinking. And you're like, okay, I got the range. It's up to me to narrow it down and bring it together. Playing in Marvel or DC, you're doing your version of an existing character. You can play to a certain degree, but then you get the notes going, the shoulder pads are less, the boots are bigger, or whatever it is. Like, all right. And some companies are more lax with that. Other companies are like, very tight. This is what the character looks like, right? But yeah, so with a book like this, or the previous ones I've done with Kyle, a lot of free reign, designing the characters, their outfits, their clothing. Like with the main character for this one, I was sending like my Pinterest board of fashion going, it's like, this is the outfit I'm seeing over here and this and so on. So yeah, the paper doll cutter. All right, musical chairs. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.